He's one of the world's biggest drug lords. He controls a huge army, billions of dollars worth of heroin, and he's avoided capture for 15 years. But Tom Gerald tracked him down in the jungles of Southeast Asia.
All the rumors said I had heart problems. I was dead. I'm not dead. The DEA may wish I was dead, but I'm not.
Now, he wants to negotiate with President Bush. Tonight, meet a notorious drug trafficker, the king of heroin.
Tonight, an invisible and potentially deadly threat to Americans everywhere. Even more ominous.
Probably never heard of Burma's opium drug lord, but together they're responsible for the flood of heroin into this country. Burma is part of Southeast Asia's Golden Triangle, the world's #1 producer of opium. This is where America's heroin pipeline begins. And several months ago, the man who controls that pipeline agreed to do an exclusive interview with our Tom Gerald, as you know.
Yes, and the man's name is Kun Sa, and he's on the most wanted list of practically every drug enforcement agency in the world. He's cunning and ruthless, and he's avoided capture for 15 years. And incredibly, he now has a provocative deal for President Bush. Tom Gerald came face to face with the notorious Kun Sa in his jungle hideout.
Hidden in the jungles of Burma is an army, 15,000 strong. These men are training for combat like soldiers everywhere. Only this is a private army, financed by drug money. Its mission, to protect a drug empire. Their leader is General Kun Sa, an opium warlord, known as the King of Heroin.
President Bush may have the button for nuclear weapons, but I have the button for opium. My opium is stronger and more potent than your nuclear bomb. It's enough that I just feed you this poison. Why should I do anything else?
This is Kun Sa's kingdom, the Golden Triangle, a vast region in Southeast Asia where Laos, Thailand, and Burma converge. There's enough opium grown here to flood the world market. The opium poppy has made Kun Sa a millionaire many times over. It's also made him one of the DEA's most wanted criminals. As elusive as he is powerful, Kun Sa is rarely seen by Westerners. When we got word that he was willing to meet with us, Burma was in political turmoil. The nation exploded last September. 1 million city dwellers marched in the streets, led by students and Buddhist monks, demanding democracy after 26 years of one-man, one-party rule. The army retaliated with ruthless killings and public beheadings. Americans were warned to stay away. To protest the human rights violations, the U.S. government cut off all financial aid to Burma, putting a halt to the U.S.-funded aerial eradication program, the primary drug control project in the region. After 5 years and millions of U.S. dollars, Washington's best hope to wipe out the opium crop was grounded.
Where does this leave you as a drug enforcement official? Are your hands tied?
Yes, we are facing a very difficult time because with no eradication in Burma, Burma being the largest producer of opium poppy, we have already seen substantial increases in Southeast Asian heroin in the United States.
There's nothing that can be done about it?
No, in point of fact, until the problem is settled, there is nothing that can be done.
Although hundreds of Asians cross border checkpoints every day, news reports from Burma have been tightly regulated since the riots. American journalists are flatly denied entry. To interview Kun Sa, we would have to cross into rebel-held territory, an illegal route to see a wanted man. Our journey started in clandestine fashion, under the cloak of darkness. We assembled in a corral near the Thai-Burma border, packing our camera gear by the light of a kerosene lantern. We'd be traveling on wild burros, beasts that would prove to be among the most obstinate and uncontrollable of animals.
You want me to hold him?
They wanted nothing to do with this journey. From the very beginning, they balked at what was ahead.
Okay, now when this one begins going in another direction, that's nothing personal.
By daylight, our mule train headed out toward Kun Sa's mountain fortress. To To avoid being spotted, we used an isolated trail to bypass the Thai checkpoint. We easily slipped into the jungle, disappearing into the heavy forest. Hour after hour passed as we traveled across rocky streams and hidden trails, totally dependent on guides who spoke no English. It's along these very unmarked trails that Khun Sa's opium is transported into Thailand in mule caravans like ours. It's a no man's land, populated by smugglers, bandits, and Burmese army patrols. It was late in the afternoon when we came across an outpost of the Shawn United Army, the first sign of Khun Sa's troops. We found it to be heavily fortified, surrounded by sharp punji sticks. Armed soldiers remained constantly on alert, watching the jungle trails below to make certain no opium caravans passed through their territory without Khun Sa's permission. Unarmed and conspicuous, we continued on with our renegade journey toward our appointment with the Opium King. Our concerns about bandits disappeared with the vanishing light. Our worry now was simply reaching camp before we and our gear were lost forever in the jungles of Burma.
The last leg of our trips have been on pitch black trails along steep rocky ledges. 14 hours after we began this journey, we've reached our destination. But the question now is, where are we?
Exhausted by the trip, we set up camp in a tin shed with dirt floors. Khun Sa's accommodations looked like a third world prison. If this was the guest quarters, we wondered, where would he put his enemies? Khun Sa's aide sent word the general would see us the next morning. The day broke like rolling thunder. An army on the move, their cadence echoing through the mountain valleys. We were squarely in the middle of a military training camp. It seemed Fort Benning, Georgia had been duplicated in the Burmese jungle. 2,000 soldiers, recruits marching with makeshift wooden rifles. In 3 months, they will join frontline soldiers who are patrolling northern Burma, protecting their drug empire against rival opium traffickers. General Khun Sa is the undisputed head of this army. He's operated here in Southeast Asia for 20 years. The son of a Chinese warlord, this 55-year-old renegade has become a legend for his shrewdness, toughness, and longevity. The sign over his headquarters defiantly reads, "Blood and Guts."
Much has been written about you, Khun Sa. For example, here's a wire service report of 1985 that says, Khun Sa, the Burmese opium warlord, died of diabetes on Wednesday. Are you Khun Sa?
No one has known where I was for the last 4 years. Not the CIA, or the DEA, or even the KGB. They thought I wouldn't dare show my face. All the rumors said I had heart problems. I was blind. I was sick. I was deaf. I was dead. I'm not dead. The DEA may wish I was dead, but I'm not.
There's a reward for you, a price on your head. How many assassination attempts have you survived?
They have tried to kill me 42 times.
Like an old jungle rat, Khun Sa has escaped authorities time after time. By 1980, the flamboyant Khun Sa had achieved such notoriety, U.S. officials put his face on a wanted poster. He retaliated by putting out a reward for DEA agents. Events came to a boiling point when Joyce Powers, the wife of a DEA agent, was kidnapped and killed in Chiang Mai. Khun Sa was blamed.
Were you responsible?
I really sympathize with her and her family, but it wasn't my doing. Still, she is only one victim. You've sprayed our country with herbicide and 10,000 are hurt. You think we're not human beings? If one of us dies, then one of you should die, and that would be justice.
Authorities finally took action. In 1982, nearly 1,500 Thai police staged an assault with bombers and helicopter gunships on Khun Sa's headquarters in Thailand. Authorities seized 15 tons of weapons, 700 rifles and pistols, 25 grenade launchers, 300 hand grenades, and 53,000 rounds of ammunition. They also took Khoon Sah's color television and left 200 of his men dead or wounded. But Khoon Sah escaped and moved his operation deep into the mountains of Burma, where he's built his current stronghold.
Khoon Sah's army has built a network of bunkers on strategic mountaintops. In the event of attack, they say, within 30 minutes, troops could rush here to defend the villages down below.
They have weapons to attack me, and I have weapons to protect myself, and I'm not afraid of them.
We've been told you have Stingers and SAM-7s, surface-to-air missiles. Is that true?
Yes, I have.
You have. You have both?
Both. Yes, both.
He's talking about some of the most deadly, high-tech weapons made in the hands of his frontline troops. But even as we followed the general through his basic training camp, we found he was armed for air attack.
What is this?
Khoon Sah claimed this was a ground-to-air missile. Not very sophisticated, but effective enough against low, slow-flying aircraft.
Is there a name for it?
Just anti-aircraft will do.
So if the eradication planes come through here, they may have a surprise.
So far, this camp has never been attacked. He operates here with impunity.
Khoon Sah's camp is big, it's noisy, you can see it from the air. Why can't the DEA and the Thai government go in and take this guy out?
Are you talking about an invasion of Burma? The United States government is not in a position to invade a country because of Khoon Sah. We do pass information that we receive on to our Thai counterparts, and the Thai government has sustained many losses in their battle against Khoon Sah.
Is he a criminal?
Khoon Sah is most dangerous.
There's no doubt Khoon Sah's strength lies in his one-man rule. His wish is law, and every resource is at his command. His army inducts 8-year-olds, youngsters taken from their homes and put into boot camp. Khoon Sah raises troops like farmers raise corn, from the ground up. Never mind that their uniforms don't fit. These are serious young soldiers.
And how old are you?
10.
His name is Jaw, recruited by the Army just 2 months earlier.
Will you be a soldier all of your life?
I don't know. He hasn't decided on it yet.
There are more than 700 boys here in camp. Khoon Sah says they won't be sent to fight until age 16. Their families have sent them here, some say under pressure, to be whipped into shape. The Army becomes their new family, and Khoon Sah, their guardian, their father, their future.
When they become older, I'll use them like Hitler used his Hitler Corps.
He'll use them as Hitler's troops? I hope he's joking.
To feed, house, and arm these soldiers is an expensive proposition. But there appears to be no shortage of money. Khoon Sah's military budget comes directly from one source, the poppy fields, which are flourishing. The crop will double this year. The native people have used opium for generations, smoking it as an intoxicant. But the big demand lies beyond the borders of Burma. There are no highways or rail lines or airports around here. Mule caravans, up to a mile long, carry the opium to market. Along the way, they must pass through Khoon Sah's tax stations. The leader of each caravan must stop and produce cash for Khoon Sah's tax collector in order to continue safely. In street terms, it's extortion, a shakedown, payoffs to do business in an illicit product.
What is your message back to American mothers who might say, Khoon Sah, stop killing our children?
You come and tell us, don't grow opium. Do you think we are your slaves? If we don't grow opium, we cannot eat. My people don't know it's sold to America. All they know is after they sell the opium, they have money to buy grain. If Khoon Sah had the power and said, you can't grow wheat, would you still have bread to eat?
Back in Washington, Congressman Charles Rangel, chairman of the House Committee on Narcotics, has followed Khoon Sah's activities for years.
You don't buy that at all?
There's no limit to his appetite, and I'm certain that he's not involved in the production of drugs in order to provide a better way of life for his people. He deals in the sale of drugs, which is death on the installment plan, and he doesn't care who gets hurt. He's a bandit, he's a criminal, he's an outlaw, he's a drug dealer.
He says that he is a man of the people. While we were there, he showed us a monastery that he had built, schools where children are speaking English. His people, he claims, see him as a Robin Hood who is taking from the rich and giving to the poor. Is that the real Kun Sa, or is that a public relations image?
He's a very good PR man, as most major traffickers are. The major interest of a major trafficker is to keep the people behind you, because the people then will protect the trafficker and the trafficker's interests.
So it's just good business?
Good business, by a very astute businessman.
The general, in fact, has a business deal in mind for the U.S., a provocative deal, one he hopes will allow him to shed his reputation as an outlaw and become a respectable leader.
I have a mission which would cause the people of the world to rejoice. That is, to eradicate opium. If you have cash to pay me, I'll give you all the opium produced in the country. You can store it in a warehouse, or burn it, or throw it in the ocean. You can do what you want with it. But you also need to help my people grow another crop and help them build roads. Those are the conditions I ask for.
Like a politician on the stump in America, Kun Sa demonstrated how his plan could work, proudly showing off rabbits and pigs, which he claims could be raised as an alternative to the opium poppies.
You want this to be the opium of the future, huh? All kinds of farming.
At issue, of course, is whether pigs could ever be as profitable as the opium crop.
Should the Bush administration agree to this plan, what's the cost? Here's today's price.
With Kun Sa's staff, we calculated his numbers. The price would be 48 million American dollars each year. That's an enormous sum until you remember that 200 tons of heroin would sell for more than $36 billion on the streets of New York. Last year, the DEA, FBI, and U.S. Customs combined seized less than 8 tons of heroin, a fraction of what Kun Sa says he'll turn over.
If Mr. George Bush doesn't throw it in the wastebasket like the others, I would really like to do it.
Kun Sa says he'll turn over all the opium that's grown in his region for a price. $48 million a year for 6 years. And he pulls the plants out of the ground very dramatically to show how he would eradicate it. Is that a viable deal?
First of all, when you're dealing with a bum, you have to find another bum to deal with him. And it would be illegal and violate every principle that we have in the United States.
Pull it all up, huh?
Second, bums that try to blackmail and shake down people are not satisfied just with 5 or 6 payments.
In the past, we've been forced to deal with criminals, with traffickers, perhaps under the table or on the side. Are there any circumstances, any possible arrangements where the U.S. would do a deal with a Kun Sa?
None. We stand to benefit nothing by acquiescing to his demands. You can't pay criminals to stop criminal activity.
To catch a thief, you must use a thief. You have dubbed me the Opium King. Why don't you approach the king? If you keep doing things the same old way, then you can carry on for another 90 years, and you will never succeed in stopping my heroin.
That is an extraordinary interview. I'm glad you're home safe. But, Tom, he does have a point. I mean, you shouldn't deal with terrorists. On the other hand, good guys don't have opium fields. I would think that there would be 50 Americans who would privately be able to raise $1 million each and pay him off.
As a matter of fact, Barbara, even tonight, one private businessman, we can't give his name because we agreed not to, is exploring a deal with Kun Sa to possibly stop the opium flow.
But what would happen if the government was able to do this and just pay off the warlords who are interested in doing this?
With Kun Sa, of course, any deal would have to have very tight controls to make sure he was delivering what he promised. Yeah. But the government makes the point that if you get a Kun Sa working for you, someone else will pop up somewhere else, another route for the opium will develop. You're going to have to deal with brush fires all around, that it really is a temporary measure rather than any permanent solution to the problem.
Is that the way you saw it?
I think he's intriguing. I think we have a drug-weary society. I think he controls a lot of opium coming into this country. It seems to me it would be worth exploring on some basis.
And look at the money we spend here.
Absolutely.
Wow. Fascinating. Thank you, Tom.
Certainly.